Welcome to Social Selling with Sam, the podcast that helps you create more leads from LinkedIn. Every episode is packed with tips and tricks to help you grow your visibility and credibility with social selling strategies that actually work. Now, here is your host, Sam Rathling.
Welcome to today's episode, which is all focused on something called the LinkedIn Social Selling Index. For those of you that have heard me speak before or you've read my book, you'll understand what this is. But if you're hearing about this for the first time, I want to focus on what this metric is, how you can use it to your advantage, and more importantly, how you can understand how to drive up your SSI score to get you more visibility and more credibility. The LinkedIn SSI score can be found in the show notes, but if you want to check out your score as I'm talking through it, go to linkedin.com/sales/SSI. That stands for Social Selling Index. I'll repeat that, linkedin.com/sales/SSI. Now, when you go in to look at your SSI score, what you'll see is a score out of 100 points, and there will be a number of different colors on the score sheet, as well as an industry ranking and a network ranking. So I'm going to talk you through each part of it. The network ranking, where it says a percentage amount in your network, is you versus everybody else you're connected to. So let's say you're connected to 500 people. That percentage is where you sit in the ranking of all the 500 people you're connected to. So if you're in the top 1%, it would mean that you're in the top 5 people, as in you've got the highest SSI in your network in the top 5 people of your network. The most relevant one, though, that I want you to pay attention to is the industry ranking. So whatever industry you've said is on your LinkedIn profile, so that might be information technology or marketing and advertising, whatever the industry you've said that you're in, LinkedIn is comparing your SSI score to everybody else on LinkedIn that is in the same industry as you. So if you want to see where you rank against your competition, then that would be the score to look at. Again, it's a percentage score, and you're aiming to be in the top 1%. Now, in most cases, if you're top 1% in one of those, you're usually top percent in your network, as well as being top percent in your industry. If you want to see the average of your industry, which for most people is terrible, if you scroll down to the bottom of the SSI score screen, you'll see that there's an average for your industry, which for most industries on LinkedIn is somewhere between 20 and 30. So if you're looking at your SSI score right now and you're above 30, you're doing a pretty good job. Now, it doesn't matter where it is today. The whole point of you listening to this podcast or reading my book or going to any of the trainings that I deliver is that you'll start to understand how important the SSI score is in your social selling journey. Now, let's look at the different components that make up your score of 100. These are all ranked out of 25 points, so they're all equally weighted in LinkedIn's eyes. And it's all done through an algorithm behind the scenes. Now, this does change quite regularly. So if ever you see your SSI score plummet and you've done nothing different, it's usually they've changed something in the back end of the algorithm that's affected the score slightly. But in most cases, you can keep it pretty consistent. Now, the SSI score can go up as quickly as it can go down, and it updates every 24 hours. So if you're like me and you like instant gratification, then this is a great little metric that you can keep an eye on. And even if you're not getting results or leads yet from LinkedIn, you can start to focus in on doing the right activities that will lead you to results in the longer term. So let's take a look at the 4 different areas of the SSI score. The first of these is called Establish Your Professional Brand. And as I record this, that's currently an orange color. LinkedIn does change the colors now and again. So the orange color, or the Establish Your Professional Brand, is a score out of 25. And there are 2 core components that really impact the score that you have under this category. They are your LinkedIn profile, and also the content that you're putting out onto the newsfeed. So your original content that you're putting out, if that's what you're doing. You might not be posting content at the minute. So if you're looking at your score and it's quite low and you're not posting, well, that would explain why your orange score is lower down. Same with your profile. If you haven't completed all the sections, if you're currently sitting at beginner or intermediate and you're not an all-star profile, for example, that will impact the orange score. So in future episodes, I'm going to be talking about how to build an effective profile, how to create amazing content. There's going to be so many episodes focused on how to help you improve your orange score. So let's take a look at the next one. It's the find the right people, which as of this recording is purple. And this particular section is all to do with prospecting and building your network. So this is LinkedIn's looking at who are you putting into your network and are you actually growing your LinkedIn network? So there are a couple of different aspects to this and there are a couple of ways to do that. So the first is obviously responding and accepting incoming invitations from other people. Now, I get asked all the time, should I accept invitations from people I don't know? I'm going to cover that on another episode, but in short, 95% of the time it would be okay to do that. And I'll share with you on future episodes, probably just do an entire episode just on that one question. But you're going to get inbound requests as well as getting new connections from you proactively adding people into your network. And that's where you can really focus on adding people in who are in your exact ideal client kind of type of profile of person. So you're going to be building your network and finding the right people. So if you're not prospecting daily, if you're not adding people who could be potential customers, then you're missing a trick and you're not going to have a very high score when it comes to find the right people. Now, obviously, LinkedIn is looking at your profile. It's looking at your network, your existing industry. All of those things are factoring in. But it's really about, are you proactively building your network and consistently building your network with the right people? The next score is called Engage with Insights. Currently, as I record this, it's a green bar. And that one's to do with a number of different things. So partly to do with engagement. So how much you're engaging with other people, how much you're engaging with the newsfeed, how much you're interacting in groups. It's also about engaging with insights. Now, some of these scores, you can only get quite high on the scoring, as in close to 25, if you have a tool like Sales Navigator. So I'm going to record some episodes on Sales Navigator. I love Sales Navigator. It's an incredible tool when you know how to use it. But if you're on the free version of LinkedIn, which most of my listeners are, then don't expect to be able to get high on this one, because engaging with insights is doing things like researching the companies in Sales Navigator, researching people in Sales Navigator, using the insights that LinkedIn gives you about different people and companies. So don't expect to be able to get much beyond kind of 15 out of 25 if you're on the free version of LinkedIn. So that would be the Engage with Insights. And as I say, it's made up of about 7 different areas, but it's all to do with engagement. The final one is called Build Relationships. And this is about building trust. So things like your inbox management or how you interact with your connections. Have you ever been reported for, something that wasn't quite right in a message? I'm sure you might have done that for other people. You've deleted and blocked people, or you've reported them for inappropriateness, etc. All of those things can affect how much people trust you, and also impacts your ability to build relationships on the platform. So I'm not suggesting that any of you out there listening have ever had anything like that happen to you, but you wouldn't know because LinkedIn doesn't flag it to you unless they connect with you directly and say, we've had a report about you. But if somebody's deleting, blocking you, or if you're being reported for things, they'll only get in touch if there is a high number of reports about a particular person, and that's when you'd know about it. But think about how much are you leaving hundreds and hundreds of messages in your inbox unanswered, for example? That could affect your ability to build relationships. LinkedIn will be looking at things like how you build relationships on the platform, both in your interactions, but also in other ways. So building relationships is really, really key to success on LinkedIn. And we're going to cover that in, I'm sure, multiple episodes coming up. But the 4 key areas there. So just to summarize, establish your professional brand, build your network with the right people, engage with insights, and building relationships. They are the 4 key things that LinkedIn's looking at when it puts together your overall SSI score. Now, there is an impact on your visibility and credibility with your SSI score in LinkedIn's eyes. So you will get further reach on your content, for example, the higher your SSI score. You are more likely to get leads from LinkedIn if you have a much higher SSI score. Because if you're up in the kind of high 70s, so 75 to 85, if you're up in those kind of numbers, you're doing a pretty good job. And you'd be in the very, very top 1% of all members on LinkedIn if you're up into the 80s, for example. Now, the SSI score isn't going to be the only thing that helps you get business, because obviously there's a lot of intricacies around how you reach out to people, how you create content, etc. But if you're in the high 70s and 80s and you aren't getting business from LinkedIn, there will be a couple of things wrong with your approach, or there'll be a couple of things wrong with your content. So that a few small tweaks and it would take it to the next level. But there isn't a single person I know, either in the sales teams that I work with or in the businesses that I work with, where there is an SSI score in the 80s and they are not getting business from LinkedIn. So your target should be to get at least a 75 plus, and if not, then to be aiming for, if you're already there, then push it into the 80s. But remember, it's hard to get into the 80s without something like Sales Navigator. So if you're on the free version of LinkedIn, which most of my listeners are, then you'll be pushing towards the 80 mark as kind of your target. Mine's currently sitting at 87, just to give you a guide, but I'm in LinkedIn a lot. I don't use LinkedIn, I'm not in it 5 hours a day. I'm probably in there maybe 15, 20 minutes a day. But just to give you an idea, I'm sitting up at the 87 mark as of recording this, but I am pushing the 90. I've got one client at 91, and it just drives me mad that I'm not the highest of everybody I know. Not that I'm competitive in any way whatsoever. So aim for 75. And regardless of where you're starting from right now, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm only 30 or 40 points, it doesn't matter, because it's actually easier to drive up your SSI score the lower down that you are. If you're in the 60s, 70s already, trying to push it much further than that is actually quite difficult, because it's only a few small things that you need to do or change in order to move the needle. But if you're down in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, don't panic. The good news is that a few small changes to what you're doing is going to take everything to the next level. So I'm going to share with you the link to get your SSI in the show notes. I'll also put a picture of my SSI score so you can see it. And I go into a lot more detail on that in my book. And I'm going to break down each of those key components of your SSI score in future episodes. But I will be referencing back to the SSI score in most of the episodes that I work with, because I think if you can really understand the social selling index, then it helps you to understand the foundations of the methodology that I'm going to take you through over the course of this podcast. So I'm excited to share with you how to actually, take each one of those components and move the needle on them. But obviously today's episode was purely about just sharing with you, what is the social selling index? How does it work? Where does it come from? Why is it important? And hopefully I've been able to give you some insight today. I'm sure for some of you this is not brand new information, but for a lot of people, when I share the SSI, they have no idea that it exists. And people are quite surprised when they're able to actually use a score to measure how well they're doing with this thing called social selling through LinkedIn. So that's it for today's episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode, where we're going to dig into a lot more detail on things like your ideal client, on effective profiles, on content, things like that. And I look forward to, hearing your results. If we're not already connected on LinkedIn, drop me a LinkedIn connection request or hit follow on my profile for more content. I do have a newsletter. Subscribe to that. It's a LinkedIn newsletter, so the details for that are in the show notes. And if you want to understand how to drive up your SSI score, then jump on my SSI challenge. I do a 5-day challenge pretty much every month. The details are in the show notes below. And in 1 week, I help people drive up their SSI score by a minimum of 5 points. So see the details in the challenge, about the next challenge coming up, in the show notes. And I'll see you on the next episode. Have a fantastic rest of the day.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to connect with Sam on LinkedIn, hit subscribe for more episodes, and remember, if you're not linked in, you're linked out.